Welcome to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. I'm Bernie Flowers, one of Uncle Sam's wayward sons. I intend to talk about important topics every week in hopes of helping to improve our country and our way of life. I ask that you like, share, and subscribe as we try to grow the channel and defend America's middle class. So, let's get started. In today's episode, I will share my unfiltered thoughts on several critical topics that I believe deserves your attention. First and foremost, I want to emphasize the importance of voting on Tuesday. It's your chance to exercise your most powerful tool for governmental change. Now, here's some other things I want to talk about. First, where did Vice President Harris get the line, "unburdened by what has been"? That phrase has always been curious to me, as I've heard it before. Well, it's familiar to me because it comes from Karl Marx, the famous founder of Marxism. One of Karl Marx's many aphorisms and addresses are about social, educational, and fiscal disparities of the various classes. He believed that the root of all evil was capitalism. Marx once argued that the only solution was equity, a social construct that ensures equal outcomes. Well, however low the common denominator must be set to achieve those equal outcomes. Only by abandoning capitalism and embracing equity can a society and its people, according to Marx, move forward into a future unburdened by what has been. That phrase sounded doubly familiar to me because in my studies over the years, I found that China's Chairman Mao used it during the Chinese Cultural Revolution. That was an extreme attempt to be unburdened by what has been, where traditional Chinese culture was seen as an impediment to the progress of a socialist state. The destruction of cultural artifacts, the re-education of individuals, and the promotion of revolutionary art and literature were all part of creating a new cultural landscape, unburdened by traditional values. Never forget that Chairman Mao and his Cultural Revolution was responsible for tens of millions of deaths in China during that Cultural Revolution. When Vice President Harris recommends that we become unburdened by what has been, this woman is telling us who she is, what she stands for, and what she intends for our republic. We need to listen. Next, I want to talk about changes to posse comitatus. Now, bottom line is that posse comitatus and its recent amendment changes has to do with defense support of civil authorities, or what I like to call DSCA. Just last month, changes to DoD Directive 5240.01, it expanded the use of military authority to use lethal force, that is, lethal force, in domestic situations. That means that military personnel could potentially use deadly force against American citizens. Now, why wasn't that widely publicized? It raises significant questions about the government's intention. Now, during my time at U.S. Northcom, the 10 years I spent working there, I was heavily involved in the DSCA process, and now I find it very alarming to see unelected bureaucrats altering policies that have been in place for over a century. The timing of these changes is curious. Actually, it's downright ominous to me. Bottom line is this is happening right before a presidential election. That gives me chills. Next, I want to talk about the fragility of our republic. Most people have very little understanding of how fragile our republic actually is. Our way of life is only as good as the people that are willing to defend it. Everyone can't serve in the military, but all of us could participate in our republic by voting. Now, I'm not the only one that believes that. I want to share some information that sheds light on the connections among influential people in our government and our society. These connections extend further into our institutions. For example, the voting machine provider Dominion services about 40% of the U.S. voting market and has ties to powerful people like Dianne Feinstein. Nancy Pelosi, and George Soros. The intertwining of relationships among these individuals, whether it's through family ties or financial interests, should make us question integrity of our systems of voting. You might remember James Comey's involvement in the Clinton email investigation. His brother happened to be in charge of the audit of the Clinton Foundation, a credible course of interest. Absolutely incredible, to tell you the truth. These coincidences are why many people in our land feel that the political system is rigged. Voting irregularities are being reported all over the election already, all over this country. But rather than complain, I ask that you do what you can control by voting on Tuesday. I say, let's make this election too big to rig. If you are unhappy with the way things are, remember that voting is your way of protesting. Tuesday is your last chance to affect this upcoming election, and every vote matters. I took advantage of my early voting opportunity last week, and here was my experience. I walked up to the counter, and a nice young lady there asked me for my name, address, and my date of birth. After that, I was given a piece of paper that allowed me to go forward to the next station, where they gave me a ballot. I had the choice between using a full electronic voting system and a paper ballot. Well, of course, I chose the paper ballot. I filled it out, took it over to the vote tabulating machine. I inserted the ballot into the machine and completed the process. It only took about 10 minutes. My question is, what were the safeguards in place to stop somebody from voting in my place? I didn't have to show ID of any kind. To me, showing a government ID would have been sufficient to stop anybody from cheating. Anybody could have memorized my name, my address, my birthday, impersonated me, and voted in my place. I believe we need a government-issued ID to enter a military base. How about getting health care? I think that I see no advantage in allowing people to vote without providing a government-issued ID. You got to have an ID to drive a car, make a gun purchase, cash a check, medical treatment, like I said before. There's no advantage in allowing people to vote without identifying themselves. People have died for the right to vote as an American citizen. We need to take that right very seriously. In conclusion, I thank you for tuning in to this special edition of the Loyal Opposition Podcast. I hope that I have given you some food for thought as we approach this election day on Tuesday. And remember, stay informed, get involved, and make your voice heard. And if you've not already voted, I encourage you to do so on Tuesday. Our country's future may very well depend on it. Well, that's about it for now. This has been the Loyal Opposition Podcast, produced in association with Fallback Productions and Veterans for America First. Please like, share, and subscribe as we try to grow the channel and protect America's middle class. Be sure to get your copy of my book, Black Values Matter, available as an ebook on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. And also, remember, it's okay to disagree. But if we want our country to prosper, we must insist on unity, transparency, and civility for ourselves and for our fellow citizens. Thanks for listening to the Loyal Opposition Podcast. We'll see you next week.